The city of San Antonio is one of the oldest, most diverse, and fastest growing cities in Texas. So we have encountered phenomenal growth and expansion without a doubt. We have also, as a consequence, encountered challenges and changes that our city's founders never dreamed we would encounter. The vast majority of people attending this forum tonight are men and women of faith. Churches and private citizens from across neighborhoods, districts, and denominations are here to decide on who they will elect as mayor. People of active faith vote their values, so the questions tonight are as much about your character and your worldview as your particular position on any given issue. We'll give you 1 minute to introduce yourselves and to share some of your history and connections to San Antonio and to state your faith tradition and church affiliation. So your history, your faith tradition, and church affiliation.
Thank you, and good evening. Your precious gift of time tonight says so much about our communities of faith. My name is Leticia Van de Pute, third generation San Antonian, a pharmacist, a business owner, and a mother of 6, grandmother of 6, soon to be 8, with the birth of twins this August. I'm so blessed. For the last 24 years, I have been your state senator in Austin. And I know that people of faith come together because of the community that we have for the good of all. So I am so pleased to be back here in San Antonio. I want to make sure that City Council is very transparent, that it's effective and it's efficient. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the questions that you have today.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ivy Taylor, and it has been a privilege and an honor to serve as your mayor since last July. I am a trained urban planner who is educated at Yale and University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Started out as a city employee and have 12 years of experience at City Hall. I'm a born-again believer who was raised in a Pentecostal holiness tradition. And while in my young years I chafed at some of the rules and regulations, as an adult I now appreciate the strong moral foundation and the fact that the Word of God was planted in me at an early age. My husband Rodney and my daughter Morgan are here with me this evening, and we are members of Greater Corinth Baptist Church on the east side, and we bring greetings from your brothers and sisters in Christ at that institution. I feel called to run and to serve in this position, and I'm a woman of integrity and bring that to everything that I do as your public servant. Thank you.
All right, at this point, you'll each be given 1 minute to answer each question, and it's the same question to all of you. However, there will be several questions that will require just a simple yes or no. Absolutely no elaborations. Yes or no. This is voter position number 1, and we're referring back to the faith-based platform for the voters of San Antonio, the handout that most of you have received. This is governed by the will of the people alone. In the past several local administrations, there has been growing opinion amongst the faith community that the voice of every citizen is not being heard, especially over the more controversial issues. Several ordinances appear to have been voted on based on individual preference or opinion. Domestic partner benefits, the non-discrimination ordinance, and initially streetcars and light rail are a few examples of what we're talking about here. So here's the question. When is it appropriate in your mind for an issue to be placed to a vote of the citizens versus a simple majority vote of the City Council? And we'll start with Leticia.
Thank you. You know, in this beautiful representative democracy that we have, it is the people who elect their representatives at the local, at the state, and the federal level. I believe that at the local level, that any time that the city will go into debt, and if there is the bond, that expenditures of tax dollars to go into debt, that must be approved by the people. I believe anything that does a homestead exemption needs to be done for the people. And I believe with all my heart that those issues that are very controversial, and we saw so many of them, really need to have the input of the people, and the council needs to decide if it is such an issue, should we go before the people? Much like our state with expansion of gaming, doesn't require it, but absolutely needs to go before the people.
I believe very strongly that your public servant should be responsive to your concerns. And so that's why, as your mayor, shortly after taking office, I stopped the streetcar project because it was so unpopular, and I felt that I needed to respond to the citizens' concerns. So first off, our top responsibility is to ensure that we elect responsive leaders to office. But then, to go a little further in response to the question, I believe that if it is a project or a policy that will incur debt or has a large expense for the citizens or would impact the tax rate, then that is something that has to go to the citizens for a vote. And also, you have the opportunity as citizens to demand a vote through petitions. So certainly, if citizens get together and sign a petition, then we need to be responsive and put the issue on the ballot.
This next question will go back to the faith-based platform. This is voter position number 2, and it's protect and defend the sanctity of life. The sanctity of life, here's the question. The sanctity of life is a central issue for many, if not all, in this room. Would you describe yourself as a pro-life or pro-choice?
As a born-again believer, I believe in the sanctity of life, both inside and outside of the womb. And as a public servant, I have focused on creating opportunities for family stability and economic development so that people don't have to be in the position to make those types of choices and make the wrong choices and impact their future trajectory. I will continue in that path to promote policies that allow for families to be stable and prevent people from making those types of choices.
I'm a Roman Catholic. Pete and I have been married 37 years, and we practice our faith. We had 6 children in 9 years. In fact, during the 80s, the only thing everybody ever said was, "Leticia, when are you due?" Or, "Leticia, haven't you had that baby yet?" And I'd say, "No, yeah, I did. I'm pregnant again." That's my personal life. When I became a legislator, I realized that there were some things that were going to be in my purview. And so what you need to know is that I do support that Constitution as it is now and allow a woman to make that very difficult decision. But what you don't know is that in 1995, I authored the toughest regulations on abortion facilities, including removing 14 physicians who had been doing over 300 abortions in their offices every year.
Thank you. And we're on voter position number 3, and that is to protect, defend, and support the traditional family. Many here tonight believe that the traditional family must not be excluded nor degraded in the light of new ideas and expressions of modern family life. So this is one of those yes or no questions. Do you personally believe that marriage should be limited to one man and one woman whose sex is biologically and genetically fixed at birth? And we'll begin with you, Ivy.
Yes, that is my personal belief.
No, I have family members who have had committed
Just
relationships.
Yes or no? Position number 4 is protect religious liberty as defined specifically by the constitutions of Texas and the United States of America. Last Thursday, the City Council considered and voted on a resolution in support of local control. Councilman Saldana's version highlighted the non-discrimination ordinance along with only 4 other affected ordinances. Councilman Cryer's version included all 60 city ordinances that bills under consideration by the state legislature could undermine when it comes to local control. So here's the question. Please state whether you would have sided with Councilman Saldana or Councilman Cryer and why.
The issue of local control has been one that has been looked at our legislature, not just for the last decade, but really since the inception of home rule cities. And I believe that either version would have probably done the trick. What is the tragedy here is the legislature is soon approaching its last month. And so I think that since it was 3 months or so since Councilman Saldana had put that forth. What is really important is that local control means your local elected officials get to set your tax rate, not somebody in a bureaucracy in Austin, Texas. That is the most important one of local control, is setting that tax rate. But it also included the ordinance on predatory lenders. And so I would have probably said, let's do the first one that came, but it should have been done a long time ago to have the maximum effect in the legislature.
For the resolution as proposed by Councilman Cryer and the IGR committee, let me tell you that at the start of the legislative session, your city council approved our legislative agenda with a heavy emphasis on local control. That was our statement that our city council had already voted and approved. When Councilman Saldana said he wanted to pass a resolution reaffirming that, I thought that made all the sense in the world. But really what he wanted to do was pass a resolution reaffirming the NDO, because the language in his resolution, the whereases, specifically refer to the NDO only, and no other ordinances that we had passed gave short shrift to those. So I could not be part of that political statement that he wanted to make, and so I stood firm and voted for what would have made sense for us as a council to reaffirm local control.
Voter position 5 is protect and defend the personal and civil liberties of all the citizens of San Antonio without compromising or jeopardizing the personal and civil liberties of any other citizen. So back to the NDO, the non-discrimination ordinance passed in September of 2013. The question is, do you believe that the addition of what many felt to be a special class of citizens to the existing ordinances and statutes was necessary? And would you have voted for the NDO?
I believe that in the workplace, that it's your skill set. It's what you bring to the workplace. It's, are you hardworking? Are you on time? Do you do the job that you're supposed to do for your employer? The NDO addressed city employees, and it addressed those who have tax abatements, some very strong incentives that the city gives. And I believe that people who are in the gay and lesbian community need to have those protections. And I do so because I have seen firsthand with my own family members how they can be discriminated against. And it shouldn't be at the workplace. Who they love at home, that is their home business. And at the workplace, it should be on what you do in your workplace. So I would have supported the non-discrimination ordinance as it relates to the city employees.
Well, I did vote no on the NDO. We know as Christians, we're called on to love everyone, but we are also required to hold up a standard. I did not feel that we should have even been debating that issue at the municipal level. I thought it was a waste of time, that we should have been focusing on those critical issues that you're concerned about, streets and roads and police and fire and libraries and parks. And there was no way that we in those council chambers could change the hearts of men. And what I felt I was being asked to do was to provide tacit approval to something that I didn't feel comfortable with, and to also demand that people who do business with the city do that same thing. And so I voted no, I voted my conscience, and I stand behind my vote.
And this is a follow-on question. It's yes or no, yes or no. Should, and I think you've heard the answer in part, should citizens be allowed to vote to approve, amend, or rescind the NDO? And Leticia, we'll begin with you. Yes or no?
This one is really tough. I think anything controversial should be put to a vote.
So that's a yes.
I believe everything that's very controversial, yes, should be put to a vote.
Yes, in the event of a petition, yes.
And voter position number 6 is to provide for the safety and security of all citizens under the law. In light of the city and the city's police and fire unions' inability to reach a solution and closure to the current contract negotiations, as mayor, state your position with a yes or a no. Police officers and firefighters must contribute to the health care costs of their dependents.
Yes.
Yes.
Voter position number 7, it says address poverty at its root causes, not its symptoms and consequences. San Antonio has one of the highest poverty rates statewide, and more children are living at or below the level of poverty here than in many large cities in Texas. So here's the question. As mayor, what would you do to address and change this sad reality, specifically in the areas of family strengthening, education, and jobs? And Ivy.
Okay, 3 things that I would do. This is something that I've been very focused on, eradicating generational poverty here. First, we've got to continue growing our economy through supporting businesses so that they can create jobs. But second, we've got to prepare our San Antonians for those jobs through workforce development, building our skills, not just the folks in the K through 12 pipeline. We want to improve K through 12, but there are a lot of people who are already past that. We want to make sure that they can have access to programs at our community colleges in our community that would allow them to gain skills so they can be gainfully employed. And then third, and this is something that I've been working on, is strengthening our partnerships with the faith-based community, because I strongly believe that our churches and congregations are in a much stronger position to reach people and help them to change their lifestyles and change habits so that they can be on the path to stability, and they can do that better than government ever can.
You're right. I believe that so much of our poverty really is that family education and the family structure. You know, not every family is like Pete and mine or like yours. When our children, when they were dating, the first thing they would say, Mama, I met a boy. And the first thing I'd say is, do they have Jesus in their heart? Or my sons, oh, I've met a girl. I'd say, do you have Jesus in their heart, right? But not every family's like that. So as mayor, we need to concentrate on those sorts of things that would help our families get strength. I believe that the partnerships that we have, the tax dollars that we spend, the perfect example is what's going to happen in District 6 with Councilman Lopez having the YMCA be the anchor, and then the library and the city services. We can join with our not-for-profits, our faith-based communities, to strengthen those tax dollars and to make sure that our education pipeline is at so our students take advantage of those educational opportunities.
How would you proceed as mayor if there was substantial evidence brought to your attention by citizens or civic organizations that city policies, processes, and procedures call into question the judgment or actions of a city department?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I'm also a former city employee. I've worked 6 years at City Hall, and so I have some knowledge of what some of the challenges are behind the scenes from the staff perspective. And so during my 6 years on the council, and especially during this past year that I've served as mayor, I have not shied away from holding the staff accountable. So certainly when those things come up, I don't have a problem with calling attention to the concerns. But also I think it's important that we outline what the performance expectations are up front and provide training for staff so they can meet those expectations. And so that is how I have operated, and that is how I will continue to operate should you give me the privilege of continuing to serve as your mayor.
Thank you. I think that this question gets to the heart of the style of leadership. Maybe it's the pharmacist in me that really looks at doing things preventively so that you don't have bad outcomes later on. Maybe it's the mama in me that understands sometimes you have to mediate adolescent disputes. But first of all, as a public official, I get the facts. You get the facts first, because we always know that there are two sides of the story, so it's important that your leaders get the facts. Second, that you identify the problem. And third, that you find a solution. Every single day that I have been a public servant, I've gone by that, and to make sure that we're fair and that we're respectful, and that if there's a correction that needs to be done, it's done very effectively and very swiftly.
All right, voter position number 8 is provide exceptional city services that improve and enhance the quality of life equally in all neighborhoods of the greater metropolitan area. And voter position 9, it's a combination here, exercise at all levels of local government sound, conservative fiscal management. Many here see the elected position of mayor as the chief steward of all the resources that we as a city have been blessed with. And we can look around San Antonio today, and there are glaring inequities in some of our neighborhoods. Recent articles in the Express News highlighted the poorest performing school districts and the least livable neighborhoods. So here's the question. How do you propose as mayor to address these inequities, specifically in the area of transportation and quality of life, and how do you provide these essential city services in an ever-growing municipality without increasing the tax debt to the citizens? And we'll start with Ivy.
Well, that kind of goes back to the previous question in relation to addressing the roots of poverty and tackling generational poverty. So I think that certainly is a part of the answer there, because in many of the neighborhoods that see those inequities, they are populated overwhelmingly by poor people. So we need to address that. Of course, a transportation plan can help us to better connect those folks to parts of town where there are educational opportunities, jobs, and other amenities while we work towards providing those things in their neighborhoods and ensuring that they have quality of life issues, access to quality of life that the city provides, like parks and libraries, making sure that there's an equal standard for those amenities throughout our city. And that's something I've been committed to. I believe strongly that we should have safe, stable, mixed income neighborhoods throughout San Antonio and not just in certain parts of town.
Thank you. I believe the question was about quality of life and transportation in our neighborhoods. You know, the things that people want is safe streets. They want sidewalks and bikes. They want their children, no matter what area of town they are, to have a safe community so they can play in the front yard. You know, we have got great neighborhoods in San Antonio, but there are some that are really having some difficulties. And a lot of that is because of the poverty. Number one, on transportation, we can make sure that VIA, our bus company, is run efficiently, that we extend that bus rapid transit to make sure that folks are getting there. We want people to ride, but let's always remember that there are those who do not have a car, and they need to get to work or school to get to their job. We're going to continue to outreach to draw those jobs and to help San Antonio businesses so they can hire more.
Here's voter position number 10, as you refer back to the faith-based platform. Integrate successful faith-based programs and organizations in full partnership with local governmental agencies to provide added value and resource to meet the needs of individuals and families. Here's the question. What do you believe the role of the church and members of the faith community should be in the city of San Antonio, Ed?
Thank you. As mayor, I would begin an initiative with our faith-based community that deals with an issue that nobody really wants to talk about. My brothers and sisters, Bexar County in San Antonio has the highest rate of removal of children from homes because of child abuse. I would ask our faith-based community, each of the faiths, to find it in their heart to have active programs to help young, struggling families, maybe moms with no dads. We know this firsthand. My sister and her husband, Pastor John Valenzuela of 210 Church, are saints. They've adopted 6 children from Child Protective Services. And I know that if they can, we can have an initiative where our faith-based community can step up to the plate to protect our children. We will never get rid of the violence in our street unless we take care of that violence against our young ones in the home.
Well, I believe the role of the church certainly is to promote active and engaged citizenship. My role as your mayor is to partner with the faith community, in particular on tackling generational poverty here in San Antonio. And I'm not just talking. I have been walking the walk. I've hosted an interfaith conference to address this specific issue. I have a group of pastors who provide counsel to me on a regular basis. We've been holding mayor's prayer breakfast meetings, and I've also issued a statement to churches about my position on how we can work in partnership to address generational poverty here in San Antonio. I look forward to continuing to work with you in that regard.
What, beyond what we have discussed here today, do you see as a looming challenge to the city that needs more discussion and attention by future mayor and council, city council staff? And Leticia, let's go ahead and start with you.
One of the things that rarely gets mentioned, but I think is so important for our city of San Antonio, is our military and our veterans. You know, each of us are here today, and we have this representative democracy because of the men and women who generation after generation have donned that uniform. We are Military City USA, but we're not Veteran City USA. And part of that is because we know of the unemployment rate, particularly of our young veterans. I think our city can do better. I think that part of our economic development is to make sure that that military at Randolph, at Fort Sam, and at Lackland remains strong. It is $23 billion into our economy, but it's much more than that. It's the safety of our country. It doesn't get talked about very much in the forums, but believe me, as your mayor, I would want to strengthen that and to make sure that we are Military City and Veteran City USA.
Well, I'll mention two critical issues. One is our tremendous growth as a city. We're expecting an additional 1 million people in our area between now and the year 2040. And we want to ensure that we maintain our great quality of life. And so we're developing a comprehensive plan for our city to help us do that. But the plan will only be successful if as many of you as possible participate and then hold elected officials accountable to the priorities that have been set out in that plan the next time it comes time to spend money for a bond and to spend money for infrastructure. And then the other thing that I was going to say is exactly what Paul just articulated, and that is related to the lack of voter turnout and citizen engagement. The low voter turnout is what put a former mayor in place and council who felt that passing the NDO was a priority. I say it's time for us to show the folks down at City Hall that we want a city council that is responsive to our values and our needs.
Thank you, Ivy. So in the time remaining, we will give each of you a minute and a half to make a final statement to the audience, and we'll begin with Leticia.
Thank you very much for having us here today. It's an honor to be on this dais with public servants who I consider friends, and for two people who have served, Paul, our veteran, and Cynthia, who has been a military wife. I believe that this election is really so important in San Antonio. And brothers and sisters, you will select one of us as mayor. But we are all public servants to each other. As a state senator for many years in Austin, you may not know that we have Bibles in our desk, and each of us are to write a scripture, our favorite. And mine I left, and it had always been there. I left it for the new senator. It is so telling of what I believe is public service. And it comes from Proverbs 3:27. It says, "Do not withhold good from those whom it is due when it is in your power to act." Your mayor and city council have the power to do good for this community, but only if it is unified. And so I will tell you that as mayor, I will bring people together. I will not be going around the country or this city or this state campaigning for any party. I want to make sure that as mayor, I concentrate on what's good for all. I will use every skill set I have for the good of this people. I humbly ask for your vote.
Thank you all for your time and attention this evening. I am asking for your support to allow me to continue serving as your mayor. I'm a dedicated public servant, not someone who's made a career out of politics. But I do have the experience to serve you well. I've been at City Hall both as an employee and as a member of the council. In between, I worked for a faith-based community development corporation focused on providing affordable housing. I am coming from my heart, and this is not about me. It is about making a better San Antonio. I've been successful and productive as your mayor, having stopped the streetcar project, brought the police back to the negotiating table, led us to a positive vote on the Vista Ridge water supply project, and put together a charter commission to allow us to have the opportunity to improve and strengthen our governance. As your mayor, I'll continue focusing on economic competitiveness, investing in our infrastructure, fiscally responsible government, and most importantly, that we act together as one San Antonio. I don't believe that we should be focused on political parties. I have never run on a partisan ticket. I'm focused on not any political partisan agenda, but on doing what's right for San Antonio. So I ask for your support to allow me to continue serving you. Thank you.